Hi guys, this is Dr. Winterbottom, and I wanted to talk to you about chapter 5 in our book, which starts on page 86-87. And this chapter is about narrating. The title is Narrating Memories. And I just wanted to go over mainly one section of this as we're getting ready for you guys to write your first essay for the course. You're going to be writing about someone who is important to you, who has supported and encouraged you, right? And you're going to be relying on thinking about and exploring your memories, your stories, experiences from your life. So it's going to be a narrative, right? So if you look on page 87 of the book, um, where it says writing strategy, focus, narrating, it tells you that narration is the art of storytelling. And just to summarize this first section quickly, when we narrate a story, we retell the event or series of events based on our memories so that someone who wasn't there has a good idea of what happened. Although narratives can be fiction, this chapter focuses on real nonfiction narratives. Nonfiction narratives need to be based on events that really occurred. Okay, so we are constantly surrounded by stories in the news, documentaries, movies, television programs, commercials, even social media posts. We find other stories engaging because they allow us to peek into someone else's world. Sometimes we relate to the experiences of the storyteller, and other times we are surprised by the unique situations that others have faced. So, this first section is called Real World Applications for Narrating, and I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to summarize it very quickly. You'll notice that there's sections called Writing Narratives in College, Writing Narratives in Your Daily Life, and then on page 88, there's a section called Writing Narratives in Your Career. So when you get a chance, read this section. For now, I'm going to skip ahead to page 89 so we can look at section 5.2. All right, qualities of an effective narrative. So this is the section that I want us to really focus on and to think about because I think it's going to be directly helpful to you as you craft this first essay. So before reading examples of narratives, the book tells us, let's think about the qualities involved in writing a good narrative. And we think about this when we're doing our own writing, and we think about it when we're reading other people's work too. All right, so number 1 on page 89, establish a clear purpose. So we're going to go through a list of, again, qualities of an effective narrative. Number 1 is to establish a clear purpose. State or imply the thesis. Typically, you'll want to state the thesis early so readers know what to expect, and develop a title. Create a title that will entice the reader. It can be fairly precise or a little more vague. Many writers have success in writing their titles later, so even though it's the first thing the reader's going to see, there's a real art and a real craft to coming up with a great title. And generally what you want to do is like write and write and write and develop your essay and think and think and think. And gradually, you might start off with a placeholder, but gradually try to come up with something that's like unique and original and speaks to what the essay is really about. So I have this writer here saying, I think I'll do some writing and get a sense of my essay's content before coming up with a title. All right, identify the time and place. So this is on page 90. This is step number 2. Somewhere in the early part of your narrative, you will need to mention when and where the event or the events plural occurred. Telling where things took place will help your reader understand your story. Provide physical descriptions of setting if you think that will help the reader visualize the scene. So, for this kind of essay that you're going to write, you're going to be talking about a person who encouraged you, and that might have happened in multiple places in different moments. So you need to sort of pick and choose which scenes and moments are the ones to really dig into and describe. Some are going to be more important than others. So, like, there's a time to summarize and get us quickly to the next scene. And then there's a time to really slow down and focus and really be specific about time and place, right? Okay, number 3, keep a consistent point of view. Okay, so this is on page 90. When you write about yourself in a narrative, it is best to use the first person point of view. First person is I. It is generally better not to shift to the second person point of view. We do this all the time when we're speaking with our friends, right? So I'll be telling a story about myself, and then I might just switch into second person you, like, when this happens, and then you do this, and then you do that. It's a habit that we all have, and there's nothing wrong with it in day-to-day speech. But in your essay, you want to try to stick to your first person narrative with your I pronouns, right? Um, but if you're writing about someone else, use third person pronouns. So, like, say you're writing about you and this person who encourages you, sometimes you'll be referring to yourself and sometimes you'll be referring to that other person, right? So, you'll probably use a combination of first person and at times like third person pronouns when you refer to the other person. So, I have like a picture of a guy here who he's thinking about his essay. He's standing behind his desk and he's thinking about a story that involves him and 2 of his friends. And so he says, should I tell that story from my own point of view? If I tell what happened to Carlos and Mary in parts of the story, that should be third person, he or she, right? Okay. Number 4, keep the verb tense consistent. Try to be consistent about the verb tense or tenses you use throughout your narrative. So generally, if something happened in the past, you should probably tell the story in the past tense, but some people prefer to use present tense for dramatic effect. If you're going to do that, just be mindful of which tense you're using and try to be consistent. I'm kind of a fan of just being very logical about verb tense. So if something happened in the past tense, I like to put it in the past tense. If you're telling a story about your own life, there might be moments where you're reflecting on the past from where you are now, or where you might have feelings that are sort of ongoing. So you might have some things that are in the past tense and other things that are in the present tense because they're ongoing, right? Like I believe something or I feel something, right? And this is something we can discuss more maybe in our discussion board at some point. So like here, if you say it was a dark and stormy night, that's past tense. But if you say I am standing at the edge of a lake, that's present tense. But it's a device. The reader knows that it really happened in the past. Whichever you choose, be consistent. All right, number 5, include plenty of details and sensory appeal. When writing a story, be sure to consider all of the journalist's questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how, and also include ample sensory details. And again, be smart about which things you want to give us the good sensory details on. Not everything will need that. And if it's like you're giving us vivid sensory details for objects that aren't that important in the scene, it might slow us down. So it's kind of like pick and choose which things, which elements, which objects, which scenes really will bring more to the story if you provide all of that ample sensory detail. Okay, number 6, present the details in a logical sequence. For a narrative, you will typically want to use chronological order. Use a variety of transitions to help your reader follow your sequence of events. So I have my little writer guy here, and he's going to tell a story about some turtles, right? And looks like the turtle came to the beach, maybe to lay eggs, then went back in the water and is then swimming around. So you have a sequence of events, 1, 2, 3, right? Transitions are words like first, then, after that, next. It can also be like on Thursday, or last June, or around 3 o'clock, or after we ate lunch. It can be phrases like that that help the reader situate what's happening in time, right? All right, number 7, use dialogue effectively. This is on page 91. Often in a narrative, you can use dialogue to help make your story more realistic. Including the exact words that someone says can sometimes be more effective than just summarizing what they said. But again, this is sort of like what I had said before about sensory detail. You want to choose your best moments that really need to be made more vivid. Like, choose the moments in the narrative where you want to slow down, focus, and really bring it to life and make it more vivid. And that's where you would probably want to use the dialogue, right? But think about which scenes are important enough to do this for. That conversation should be an important one if you're going to give us the dialogue. Okay, number 8, include visual aids if appropriate. So you're writing an essay. Most likely you're not going to be providing pictures for essays, but it just kind of depends. Like, there might be courses where it makes sense to include a graph or something. I don't know. I guess I'll try to be open-minded about that. Like, there are times where a picture might be helpful. So what the book is suggesting is pictures, diagrams, or other visual images can help your reader more fully comprehend the story you are retelling. And I would say that having a picture to look at while you are writing can also be really helpful. So, like, if I was going to tell a story about my father who passed away some years back, I might want to have some pictures of him around, because those pictures will sort of summon my memories and make me think of things I might not think of otherwise, right? And maybe same thing about a location, right? It might be helpful to have those pictures on hand. Okay, number 9, end with a thought-provoking conclusion. Your narrative needs to make a significant point about something that you learned or came to understand as a result of your experience. While the point doesn't have to be earth-shattering, it should strike readers as relevant and interesting. So I have this person saying the ending kind of makes you think, and I have all these people saying, how should I end my story, right? And then finally, that was just a quick summary of that section, but go ahead and read it in full when you have time. It's pretty helpful to think about these elements when you're getting ready to write a narrative. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on Blackboard.